Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and my personal thanks to Airship for inviting me to be part of your event. As the name and the accent give me away, I am American, but I live in the UK. I've been a British citizen for a number of years, and I've been in the UK for about 30 years. So I end up traveling the world and spend a lot of time in Europe and a lot of time back here in the United States. At Forrester, my coverage is marketing technology, but it strays into the areas of digital experience and customer experience as well. So I spend a lot of time with consumer brands looking at the future of technology deployments and how that fits into the human parts of the organization. And then I spend a lot of time with vendors like Airship and others so that we can look at where things are going and see what support we can provide all of you as you're looking at how to bring that innovation to your customers. So today we're going to talk about AI. You've heard that already from Maria and from Brett, but my little twist on AI is that we're going to talk about how to realize business value from using AI. So we're going to look at it a little differently instead of looking at the technology itself. And keeping with our theme for the event, Elevate, you may recognize the summit of Mount Everest there. And if we take a step back and look at the entire Everest range, it is, of course, incredibly impressive. About 30,000 people go to the Everest Base Camp every year. Now that number is actually much higher if you include all of the Sherpas and guides and support people, but about 30,000 tourists, if we can call them that, visit the base camp every year. It might surprise you that fewer than 500 of those people actually get permits to try to get to the summit. And of those, fewer than half actually make it to the top. And I think there's a parable in there for where we are with AI today, where there's a lot of people who are interested, but it's only the few right now who are actually getting to the top. And that's what we're going to spend time talking about. We know that it might look like everyone is trying to get there, because they are, and it might seem like that peak is very crowded. This is a famous picture from May of 2019 where it was before COVID and there were hordes of people trying to get to the top of Mount Everest. And it might feel like everyone's ahead of you, but trust me, they're not. It still boils down to fewer than 250 people who were tourists who made it to the top of Everest that particular year in 2019. And why is that? Well, conditions are uncertain, and they're constantly changing. To quote Ed Viesturs, who is a famous Everest climber, getting to the top is optional, but getting back down is mandatory. So the first time that Ed tried to get to the summit of Mount Everest was 1987. He and his partner got to within about 100 yards of the summit. The conditions were changing. They didn't think they had exactly the right equipment, and they turned around and went back down. So Ed didn't actually make it to the summit until 1990, but he has made it to the summit now 7 times without supplemental oxygen. And in fact, he has climbed all 14 of the peaks in the world that are above 8,000 meters. So sometimes knowing when you're on the wrong path and turning back is just as important as continuing that journey. Here's a picture of Ed himself. So here's the man at the top of Mount Everest, top of the world. And his advice is that if you're going to do this and you're going to be successful, you're going to need the right team, the right people. You're going to need the right operational framework. You're going to need the right equipment. And perhaps most importantly, you're going to need that discipline to know when you have it wrong and to start again or to take another path. And I think, bringing us back to AI, that same set of principles applies to your AI strategy, where the human foundation is absolutely critical. Reworking your processes and transforming those processes for a new way of doing business, also critical. Obviously, your tech and your data ecosystem will support all of that, and you need that discipline You need the governance and metrics in place to ensure that everything you're doing with AI is supporting your business strategy. So let's jump into this, because I think what we're going to find is that having the best AI won't make you a winner. Those options are available to everyone. All of your competitors can partner with Airship or Google or OpenAI or Meta or whoever the case may be. It's going to be your operating model and your framework that actually make the difference for you competitively. Let's take a look at the hype. We saw some figures from Gartner, and it's interesting that Gartner and Forrester's numbers pretty much align, which makes me feel good that we are looking at the industry in the same way. We know that when we ask marketers, they're all bullish. 88% say, of course, we've deployed AI. But in most cases, that means they're using predictive models in some way. They might have some generative AI. They likely don't have much agentic AI yet at all. And in fact, only about 30% of marketers have Gen AI in production use cases. And then the numbers start to go down a little bit. You'll find that 20% have a central team where they manage their AI strategy and they have a budget for it. Fewer than 15%, I think Gartner said 17%, so very close. 15% have actually deployed agentic AI in a meaningful way. And those decision makers that have deployed agentic capabilities tell us that they don't really fully understand the impact on the business yet. And that's a bit of a worry. In fact, we predict that in 2026, we'll see about 25% of AI budgets get delayed to 2027 because people will be trying to look for that business value, and the CFO will get involved, and there will be hard questions that are asked. And those agentic capabilities might seem really sexy, but if they're not delivering business value, then we might find that the budgets get paused. And we see that happening because so many people expect that immediate return. We find that people want that return on investment to come in the first year, or they're not really interested, as opposed to looking at how it might be part of a long-term, more sustainable strategy. We find that it's easy to set a goal that says even our non-technical people are going to be experts in AI, yet we don't take the trouble of putting a training program in place. Or we want our development people to start coding using generative AI capabilities, but we don't document these new development processes in the right way. So there's a lot of things that are getting in the way. Now, to look at it from a pragmatic perspective and the way we see things evolving, AI itself is not new. I was at Dreamforce, actually. I'll name the vendor. I was at Dreamforce, and I saw Mark Benioff on stage say that, we had predictive AI starting in 2016. It's like, maybe I'm just old, but we were doing predictive AI close to 30 years ago. So it's been around for a while, but we're seeing the evolution through generative AI and natural language capabilities, and of course heading toward agentic AI, where we will see more autonomy in the agents. We have tried to look at how these agents might evolve, and we think that there are going to be lots of use cases. You can just name one, and you'll probably hit upon an agentic use case. But we think they roughly fit into 5 categories. There will be the digital assistants that provide help to the employees of a company. There will then be the agents that are responsible for automation, where we give them a task, and if they prove that they can do that in a reliable way, they operate with autonomy. That might be things like moving data from A to B. It might be replenishing a supply chain or inventory. We then are seeing, of course, the ones that get the most attention, the ones that all of us use as consumers, the self-service agents that make life easier for us. And then there are, of course, the agents that govern those to make sure that they operate within business rules or in the regulated sector, making sure that we don't violate anything that would get us into issues with fines because we've violated privacy or ethical laws or whatever the case may be. And then finally, still in the future, although we hear a lot about it, the time will come when all of us have agents that we trust to represent us. And we call those digital doubles. We don't call them digital twins because there is an established definition for a digital twin in the industry where, like, for example, Boeing might simulate a jet engine with software so that they can test it. So we don't use digital twin to describe that. We're currently using digital double, but I think that will change as we start to see these come out. I don't think a digital double is really what we will see. I think it will be more a trusted representative or a trusted agent that can represent us as consumers. Not there yet, but coming quickly. So whether those agents are going to support us as employees or they're going to be there for self-service as we consume from brands, I think we can all agree that AI is going to play a critical role here. And there will be a lot of innovation that happens on the glass. And all of you, based on the work you do with Airship, I know you already know that. There is a lot of innovation from Apple and Samsung and Google and others, which is in some ways out of our control. It's built into the device, and then we leverage that to ensure we provide better services to our consumers. But there's a lot that happens below the glass. There's a lot of intelligence and context that show up in the data that we capture about our customers that let us make those experiences better. And that's where I think we will see a lot of effort from all the brands that we have here in the room in order to differentiate when it comes to AI. Some examples of that are interesting because they're not all fully agentic, and they don't need to be. So Whoop, of course, offers health and fitness capabilities. There's a wearable device, there's the app that goes with it, but it doesn't have to be fully agentic. It can support you by providing you information about your body and about your workout. And that assistance is just as important as doing something in an autonomous way. It might be that what you need from your agent is that it's more anticipatory. So Commonwealth Bank and other insurance and banking organizations in the world don't need to be fully agentic, and in some cases they can't be because of regulation, but they can certainly be anticipatory, where if they know that you live in an area that is adversely affected by bad weather and storms and hurricanes, they can reach out to you to let you know that they're there and that they've got services that can support you. And then, of course, there are the fully agentic ones. And I'll be honest, I put Amazon in the presentation on purpose to be controversial, because Amazon, of course, does offer you the ability as a consumer to buy directly from other brands with Amazon as your agent, the buy for me functionality. And they're getting a lot of pushback on that because Amazon is doing that in some cases without involving the brands. And I think we can agree that we'd prefer that not happen. But at the same time, there will be many opportunities where Amazon, Meta, Google, Microsoft, and others will have the direct interface with our customers. And it's up to all of us to work with them to make sure that our brands are represented in the appropriate way when those agents are going to make goods and services available to those consumers. Well, let's look at the opportunity. I've given you kind of the bad news and the cautious approach and how this is all evolving, but let's look at the opportunity, because there is a tremendous opportunity here. And if you do nothing, there is a tremendous opportunity cost. And we think that it applies across multiple dimensions. So from a brand experience level, we see that when you get this right, there's an opportunity to grow revenue faster than your competitors. From a customer experience perspective, we see that there's better retention when you get these AI-enabled experiences right. And finally, it's also good for the employees. we find that if you provide a good employee experience, you will get more engagement and more involvement from your people in the organization in the way that they feel good about supporting and providing services to your customers. There are, of course, the risks that come with this, and I'm not going to go into detail on these headlines. You've probably seen or heard many of these stories. I know the Air Canada story circulated everywhere about 18 months ago now, where the chatbot offered a consumer a bereavement fare without going through the proper channels. In the UK, DPD is a delivery company, and a consumer actually convinced the chatbot to say that DPD was the worst delivery company on the face of the earth, and got it to write a haiku telling the world that it itself was useless as an assistant. Yeah, lots of fun there. Of course, we've seen the ads from McDonald's and Coca-Cola and other big brands where they're a little bit creepy in the way they've generated people that didn't quite resonate with the public. Or I love that Taco Bell's agent on the drive-thru lets someone order 18,000 bottles of water. So there are opportunities for this to go wrong if we're not prepared. And we think that in 2026, there will be a lot of brands who do get it wrong. Close to a third of brands in 2026 will launch something before it's ready, and they'll destroy trust with their consumers as a result. So we do have to be cautious about it. Why? Because most firms aren't ready for agentic AI. There are no rules. There are no playbooks. There are no best practices at this point in time. When you're buying or building and deploying agents, again, there are no rules. I was talking to one of the biggest MarTech vendors in the industry yesterday, and we were talking about their pricing model for AI, and they're like, honestly, we're figuring it out as we go. And that's what's happening across the industry. We also find that trust and confidence among the employees is obviously going to be critical. And of course, we do have to integrate with our existing systems. Despite what we hear about the SaaS apocalypse, we aren't seeing the software industry implode overnight. There's going to be the need to integrate with our enterprise applications well into the future. And not everything is going to be agentic at the snap of our fingers. So what do we recommend that you do? Well, we recommend that you define an AI strategy that first lets you accelerate. Basically, start with the low-hanging fruit, the things that you can do better, quicker, more efficiently. And that's where we've seen AI deployed to date. But no pun intended, Elevate was in my slides before I was invited to this conference, but we think you can elevate the way work gets done. It changes as roles change and as people adopt these tools and get more proficient using them. And then after you've done that safely, after that, it can begin to permeate, and it can be part of your internal environment, and it can also be part of your customer-facing environment. And I know VML is here as one of the sponsors for the event, and when we spent time talking to the people at VML and their agentic labs, I think they sum it up really well when they say that it's about changing and transforming. You can't just apply AI to your broken processes. It should actually give you an opportunity to reset and change what you're doing. It starts with the humans. So you saw this already from Maria and from Brett. The human foundation becomes important. That means figuring out and understanding how your employees think and feel about AI. It's as much the soft skills as the hard skills and the training. Understanding who is ready to embrace, who is ready for change, who wants to experiment, who wants to be part of a pilot, because not everyone will, and that's okay. It's also figuring that out with your consumers as well, and doing that in a way that is responsible. And if you put all of that together, we refer to it as your AIQ. Obviously a play on words there, but your AIQ becomes important. And it's something you need to assess. So we would recommend that you conduct an assessment that is right for your organization, and that has to be across everybody. It has to be something you do with your frontline staff as well as the leaders and the managers in the organization. You have to involve people across the organization in leadership positions in your plans and what you're going to roll out. And of course, you need to develop a plan to keep people ahead of the curve, because this is all going to change very quickly. As I told you, one of the biggest vendors in the space told me yesterday, we're figuring it out as we go. So you're going to need a plan to stay in front of that. One of the brands that I think has done a pretty good job of this from an internal perspective is Vodafone. So they have, of course, a conversational agent that they call Toby. Toby handles 45 million conversations a month in 15 languages already. But more importantly is what sits under that. Vodafone took the time to define its AI strategy in language that its employees and its customers could understand. It conveys the transparency, the accountability, the ethics, the fairness, and their approach to AI. And that becomes the foundation for everything that they do. So that human foundation is definitely the starting point. You then have to look at transforming your processes. And we know that consumers are going to adopt AI that works for them. We like to think of it as a consumer's value network, where they figure out what works, and that's where they'll go. As Brett said, you'd love it if they come to you, if they come to your app, they come to your website, and that is the place where they feel they'll get the best experience. But they might go to other channels. They might prefer WhatsApp, and you have to integrate with Meta. They might prefer OpenAI. They might prefer Microsoft or Google. So making sure those connections are in place will change your internal processes. You have to think about how to align and connect that so that you provide consistency as a brand regardless of that touch point. And for the marketers or the digital experience people in the room, that will mean less or fewer outbound offers. All of those promotional campaigns start to take a back seat. What becomes critical is that you're more responsive when the customers come to you. And that's a big process change for a lot of marketers. I talk to marketers every day, and they're still concerned about looking in the database, building an audience, creating a campaign, sending an email, the usual stuff. Can you use AI to do that quicker, better, faster? Sure. Should you? Absolutely not, because just automating bad marketing means that your bad marketing scales even further. So we're going to have to rethink these processes dramatically. And that begins with trust. And these are Forrester's 7 levers or capabilities that we define for trust. And we think that they become important in your processes. AI introduces the need to have different processes in place that will protect that trust that you have with your consumers. And it varies by use case. It varies by brand. But you have to remember that it becomes clear, simple, and easy for the consumer. That's what they're looking for. We also find that if it's an everyday task, it's something I go to the app every day to do, they just want that to be consistent. They want it to be dependable so that they can rely on it. But if it's something that really matters, it's a big decision they're going to make. That's when they want the app to be more responsible. They want to feel that the brand is empathetic to their needs and understands them better. So trust is a continuum, and these 7 levers can apply in different ways, and you have to think about how and when to build those in. Virgin Atlantic is here, and Virgin Atlantic last night received an award because of Best New App, and I happen to fly Virgin Atlantic frequently when I'm crossing the Atlantic. And the app is good, it's fun to use, it's easy, it's pretty, all of the things an app should be. But what I like most about what Virgin Atlantic has done is they realize that the differentiator that they have is their people. And they see that consistently when they get customer satisfaction surveys back from people who fly with Virgin Atlantic. So they wanted to build that level of personality and that level of trust and that tone of voice into the app so that it represents the people. And that's the kind of trust continuum that I think we need to build in to any of our AI capabilities. L'Oreal has done that as well. It's interesting that I still talk to marketers who think they need to know their customers. They want to know everything about you. I even saw a demo, actually it was just last Thursday, I saw a demo from a tech vendor, and they're like talking to their AI, and they were trying to show me how great the voice interface was. But what the guy said to the voice interface was, build me a campaign to market to all the Asian Americans in my database in the northeastern United States. I'm like, what? You're gonna market to Asian Americans? Do you have a flag or a field in your database that identifies people on ethnicity? Are you kidding me? You know, and if you don't, he's like, no, of course not. I'm like, well then how does the AI determine who is Asian American? Well, why would you even say such a thing? And we're finding that brands like L'Oreal realize that, right? You no longer ask questions about age, ethnicity, gender. These things are unimportant for you to know as a brand. What's important that you know what kind of mascara will complement my eyes? What haircut will best fit my face? What hair color should I go? You know, if you've got 17 shades of blonde, which one is right for me? That's a lot more important than knowing how old I am, which I probably don't want to share with you anyway. So these are the kinds of things that we're learning. When it comes to the tech then, so you've got your people and your processes sorted out, and now you have to sort out the tech. It's complicated. What I would tell you is give up on the idea of a stack and give up on the idea of a customer 360-degree view. There is no such thing. It will never be complete, so I would stop trying to build that. Instead, I would look at an integrated ecosystem. I would look at how that ecosystem lets me recognize customers and understand their context and their needs, so I can make a better decision, and then I can serve that customer where they want to be served. Of course, for me as a brand, I want to capture all of that intelligence internally so that I continuously optimize. But I want to optimize the outcomes for the customers as much as I want to optimize what I'm doing as a brand to make money. And so if you do that, it means that you have an enterprise customer data management strategy, but it won't be a single platform. It won't be a single data lake. It won't be a single CDP. It will be a customer data management strategy. And then your ecosystem should sit on top of that. And back to my example about L'Oreal, stop trying to figure out everything you want to know about your customers. Think more about what you need to have available to better serve them instead of knowing every detail about their lives. When it comes then to serving those customers, understand them, optimize your strategy to serve them, and then just do it, which sounds easy enough, but of course it will take continuous optimization in order to get that right. We also very much believe that as a brand, you don't deliver value. Now I know a lot of you probably have value somewhere in your mission statement, but we really believe from talking to consumers that brands deliver products and services. Customers realize value or not, but they'll do that on their own terms. So they might realize economic value if they feel they paid a fair price. It might be functional value if the umbrella keeps me dry in the rainstorm. It might be experiential value because you've just made things so enjoyable for me, like Virgin Atlantic does in the upper class lounge, by the way. I will stop flying when I can't go in the upper class lounge at Heathrow, just to give you a little plug. It might be that it is purely symbolic value, where it's status or it's a feel-good factor. But putting your tech ecosystem together in a way that lets you figure out which of these values the customer is looking for is going to be important. Figuring out how they will work not only with you, but with other AI-enabled companies and the tech giants and hyperscalers to fulfill their value network becomes an important part of making your tech ecosystem work. BBVA is a good example of that. To go to a banking example, they, of course, like all of you, have a good mobile app. It's been there for a while. They began introducing AI capabilities into the app some time ago, but now they're looking at how they can let you tailor the app to your needs so that you can customize the app and it's personal to you depending on how you like to use the app and what you like to do, so that the things you need to do show up at the top. Seems like a simple and easy thing, but it took some effort to figure out that that is the way that they could better serve their customers. Right, so you figured out the people, you figured out the process, you figured out the tech ecosystem. You still have that fourth element of discipline, where it will require the governance and the right metrics if you're going to prove the business value. And even though there will be pressure from the C-suite to look at short-term ROI and give me payback in 6 months, I would encourage you to fight the good fight and insist that we look at some short-term return, but we also look at the long-term, more sustainable return that we're going to build as we deploy our AI capabilities. You should definitely think of AI as a business transformation. It's not just a tech initiative. If you think of it as adding tech capability, you will fail. I wholeheartedly believe that, and I've talked to organizations where that's been the case. You need that governance, and it might seem counterintuitive, but governance actually drives innovation. If you have governance in place to help you figure out what is possible and what is possible in a way that is responsible, you will get there faster. If you don't have those guardrails, you'll be reckless, and you might have something that looks really good and feels really innovative, but if it fails, you are no further along in the process. So I think governance is an enabler for innovation. And then finally, you need those foundational capabilities. You need the people, you need the process, and you need the technology. And I know it probably sounds strange in April 2026 to be sitting here and hearing somebody say it comes down to people, process, and technology. But those are the foundational elements, and it is getting those right that will enable AI to actually perform in a way that delights your customers and provides that return on investment. So it is people, process, and tech, but it's not your grandfather's people, process, and tech. It's thinking about it in a whole new way. It's leveraging the capabilities of AI to reinvent, because if you just apply AI to your existing processes, if those processes are inefficient or wrong or not set up to let you change and evolve, then it's not going to do you any good. I would not try to codify bad processes. Some examples that we think are doing a good job: Club Med, and this started in Brazil, but it rolled out to Club Med around the world, where they've got, of course, an integration with WhatsApp. They figured out that as many people that use their app like to use WhatsApp as well, especially in Latin America, especially in Europe, especially in India. So they integrated with WhatsApp. They also did that for their employees. So the employees who are serving customers would have a better interface. And they found that that not only improved Net Promoter Score and conversions, it also increased the productivity of the staff. And here's a good quote from their chief data and AI officer saying, "We started with the basics. We analyzed our call center data. We found that the two things people want to talk about the most are product and pricing. And so we used those to govern and guide how we developed the conversational assistant so that it could answer questions on the things that people most wanted to talk about." So it might sound really boring to think about product and pricing, but those basics are what made the difference for Club Med. Then we have Home Depot, and the Home Depot, of course, have done a lot of different things leveraging AI. They have integrated in store so that the people walking around in these massive stores can help you find what you're looking for. They have AI search to make the shopping experience better. If you're a professional contractor, They have tools that are available to make it easier for you to buy in bulk and to find the way to buy a pallet and get a pallet delivered. And of course, they have their Magic Apron. I love the name of that, but they have the Magic Apron to help you plan and roll out a project in an effective way. And by doing all of that, they of course have increased sales and they've seen higher conversion rates. You would expect that. That's what a retailer would like to do. But more importantly, they've increased their engagement with the professional segment. They really see that professional segment giving way to all of us as consumers who are doing our own DIY more and more has been a very important change for them. And it's also helped them internally with better inventory management and better delivery management, better logistics. So there are ways to apply this other than just the immediate customer engagement and the conversion that you might be looking for. So I'm going to wrap this up, and then I think we're going to have time for a few questions. The airship team will let me know if we do not. But if you think of this journey to the top of the mountain, where you define your strategy, you look at your people, you look at your processes, you look at the tech ecosystem, you apply the right governance, that's when I think you can start looking to measure the business value at the peak of that mountain. If we look at it another way, if you prefer to look at them as 1, 2, 3, 4, here you go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, people, process, tech, and then the governance and the metrics that will bring that to life. And another quote for you from another Everest climber. So Adrian Ballinger, he's been to the top of Everest 9 times, only 1 time without oxygen, but he leads expeditions now as a mountain guide, and he has guided over 100 people to the summit of Everest. And his advice would be, you only get there if you measure each of those small successes along the way. So he has a really rigorous training program and acclimatization or acclimation if you're American, so that people get used to the altitude and the stress on the body. And it's through those small victories that you eventually are able to ascend to the top. So with that, I thank you, and I know there are some microphones, so we'll take questions. Thank you.